China did not turn the Taklamakan Desert green. It did something more practical. It built an approximately 3,046-kilometer sand control belt around the desert's edge. And then it started asking a very industrial question. Can stopping the sand also support power, agriculture, transport, and jobs? That is why China's desert story is not just an environmental story. It is an industrial strategy. To an outside viewer, this can look like another giant campaign to conquer nature. Plant trees, draw green lines on a map, celebrate a bigger forest number, and call the desert defeated. That criticism is not silly. Natural deserts are ecosystems. They are not empty land waiting for a forest. Dryland planting can fail when officials choose the wrong species, use too much water, or count planted area instead of surviving vegetation. So what exactly is China trying to fix? The answer starts with a distinction that often gets lost. A natural desert is not the same thing as desertification. A stable desert can support specialized plants and animals. It can also take part in dust, heat, and nutrient cycles. Desertification is different. It is the degradation of productive dryland under pressure from people, climate, or both. The sand becomes an economic problem when it covers a road, damages irrigation, reaches farmland, or threatens a settlement. The target is not the desert. The target is instability. The ecological value of desert is not theoretical. Satellite research has measured Saharan dust crossing the Atlantic and delivering phosphorus to the Amazon basin. The amount changes with wind and weather, but the mechanism is clear. Removing or stabilizing every source of desert dust would not automatically improve the planet. The location and behavior of the sand matter. In November 2024, China announced the completion of an approximately 3,046-kilometer sand control belt around the edge of the Taklamakan, China's largest desert and one of the world's biggest shifting sand deserts. That sounds like a wall. It is not a concrete wall. It is a belt of shelter belts, shrubs, grasses, checkerboard barriers, and other measures chosen for local conditions. The idea is simple. Slow the moving edge where it meets roads, farms, power lines, and towns. Protect the assets that make the region useful. The smallest unit can look almost ridiculous. Workers lay straw or other local material in a grid across the sand, one square after another. The grid changes the wind near the ground. It traps moving grains. It creates small pockets where the right plants can survive. A checkerboard does not magically turn a desert into a meadow. It buys time, and time is what a wider protection system needs. That is where the economics changes. A plant is not valuable only because it is green. It is valuable if the system around it protects a road, a railway, a farm, a transmission line, a water project, or a settlement. The relevant comparison is not tree versus sand. It is the cost of maintaining a protection belt versus the cost of losing infrastructure to dust and moving dunes. That is an infrastructure calculation, not a beauty contest between green and yellow. For a country the size of China, a small failure at the desert edge can become a supply chain problem. A buried road slows trucks. A damaged irrigation channel cuts farm output. Dust reduces visibility, wears equipment, and forces expensive maintenance. When several risks sit along one corridor, stabilizing the land can protect much more than one field. Now comes the industrial turn. Some projects connect restoration with productive assets. Solar arrays can produce electricity. At the same time, their structures can change shade and wind at ground level. In suitable areas, restored land can support drought-tolerant crops, fodder, or other local products. Construction, monitoring, irrigation, and maintenance create recurring work. Solar does not make the constraints disappear. Panels need access roads, cleaning, transmission, and maintenance. Crops still need a water budget. The industrial case is strongest when productive infrastructure and sand control share the same land and lower each other's costs. It is weakest when a demonstration survives only through permanent subsidies or groundwater pumping. The point is not that every desert project suddenly makes money. The point is that some restoration costs can be attached to assets that produce revenue. Energy or agriculture can help pay for the system that protects the land. That is a very different model from planting trees, and hoping the budget survives. It also explains why this matters beyond one Chinese desert. Many countries have dryland corridors where roads, farms, mines, and energy projects sit next to mobile sand. The transferable idea is not a particular Chinese tree. It is treating land stability as infrastructure, then asking whether that infrastructure actually lowers operating risk. The 3 North Shelter Belt program shows why the state matters. It began in 1978. It is planned to run through 2050. That is longer than most companies, election cycles, and infrastructure projects. The hard part is not drawing a line on a map. Desert control is not a one-season construction job. A barrier can degrade. Plants can die. Dunes can shift around a protected area. A project that looks successful in year 2 may be expensive or ineffective in year 12. Monitoring and maintenance are part of the asset. They are not an optional afterthought. That is the difference between a photo opportunity and infrastructure. The hard part is coordinating a long-time horizon with local labor, satellite monitoring, water management, construction standards, and industrial investment. And the answer cannot be one tree species everywhere. One region may need grass. Another may need shrubs. Another may need trees. Another may need a checkerboard and no forest at all. The system works only if the engineering changes with the land. That flexibility allows one region to protect a transport corridor while another preserves a natural desert. It also gives local governments a reason to track survival, water use, and maintenance instead of chasing one national planning number. But here is the part the green success story tends to skip. The map can hide a water bill. Dryland vegetation has a limit set by rain, soil moisture, groundwater, and maintenance capacity. Research on China's Loess Plateau found that revegetation can approach sustainable water resource limits. That study is not a measurement of the Taklamakan belt. It does show a wider rule. More vegetation is not automatically more ecological value. The real tests are harder. Do the plants survive without permanent watering? Does the project protect native desert biodiversity? Does it stop sand movement, or just move the problem somewhere else? Can local revenue pay for maintenance after the cameras leave? Are official numbers measuring ecological function, or just project activity? There is a political temptation to turn a complicated boundary project into a clean national victory. A planted area number travels well in a headline. Survival rates, groundwater trends, maintenance costs, and native species do not. Those less photogenic measurements decide whether the project is still working 10 years later. This is why China is greening the desert is too simple. China is trying to make the desert frontier predictable enough for people and industry to operate beside it. The ecological constraint is real. The industrial logic is real too. The best projects will not be the ones with the most trees. They will reduce sand damage, respect water limits, preserve the desert that should remain desert, and pay for their own maintenance. The real product is not forest. The real product is stability. That is the industrial wager today. Make the boundary stable enough to support life, logistics, and investment. Follow me, and I will take you inside the real story of China.